All right, I don't know what time it is on your clock, but I know what I'm getting ready for. It is time for the Professional CISO Podcast with David Mallico.
Welcome, one and all, to the Professional CISO Show. I'm your host, David Mallico. This show is an exploration of the topics necessary to transform the CISO role into that of a professional. All right, gang, we're going to get started with some reminders. First and foremost, I think it's the first time I've had it out on the show, but we are going on tour. We're doing a U.S. tour, and it kicks off in St. Louis next week on September 24th and 25th. Now, unfortunately, it's closed, so you just can't show up and expect you're going to come see us. But ultimately, if you've been invited, we appreciate you coming and look for that content to come out where we're traveling around the country, talking to the top cybersecurity leaders in each city. So tune in for more of that. Also, we're going to be at HughesCon on September 30th with CyberOne. We're going to actually be in their booth on the floor. It's going to take place at the George R. Brown Convention Center in Houston, Texas. Again, September 30th. Come see us. Maybe I'll put you in the chair and we'll have a little talk. Also, October 2nd, we're going to be at the GuidePoint Security's GPSEC DFW conference. That's going to be at the Omni PGA in Frisco, Texas. So if haven't been over there, that's where the headquarters of the PGA of America is. Pretty cool place. We're going to be set up outside. We're going to be touching grass and enjoying the fall weather. So again, come out and see us. If you haven't registered yet, go ahead and do that. All right. And finally, like, follow, share. Best way to make sure you continue to get this great content. Hit that follow button on Spotify and Apple. Hit that subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on LinkedIn. And again, share it with a friend or family member. Okay? All right, main content. First, here we go. Welcome back, friend of the show, Joe Sullivan.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me back on.
Dude, well, first and foremost, what I want to say is I absolutely loved our interaction at RSA. I was off the beaten path at kind of this cool down place. I walk out. I see on the side. Who do I see on the sidewalk with Joe Sullivan? Unfortunately, in a boot. Sorry about that. I mean, he was kind of hobbling along to the next place. I was like, he looks at me, Dave. I'm like, Joe. And so we hang out for a minute, talk a little bit. And he's like, hey, think I'm going to come through Dallas here over the summer, maybe into the fall. Appreciate that. Appreciate you coming in today. Appreciate you being in town.
Yeah. Oh, you reminded me about that boot I had to wear. I tore my Achilles. I tore my Achilles the week before RSA, and the doctor's like, "All right, you're going to have surgery, and you cannot be on your foot for a few weeks." And so the following week was RSA, and I had like 10 commitments, things I needed to do. And the following week, I was scheduled to fly to Dubai and do a keynote. Wow. So I had two choices. Have the surgery and cancel everything, or just put a boot on and delay the surgery 3 weeks. And so I basically ended up giving myself an extra 3 weeks in a boot just so that I could live up to my commitments. But I don't recommend tearing your Achilles.
I've heard that.
It is probably, I injured myself a little too much. I've had surgeries on my knees and shoulders and back and lots of things. And this one is definitely the hardest to recover from. And I've talked to a lot of people about it. It's because it literally takes a year for you to feel back.
Well, you're walking pretty well. I mean, no boot today.
I'm post boot. I'm allowed to do toe raises.
Nice.
That's about it.
That's about it.
I can't run yet, but good thing I have a desk job for the most part.
Well, again, I love sometimes when that serendipity happens and, just surprised me. I was like, oh, there's Joe. Oh, holy shit.
Yeah.
Pardon my French. But out of that, we said, hey, let's sit down.
Yep.
We'll figure it out. Obviously, busy schedules all around, but here we are. Even better news, we got a dinner tonight that we're going to both be at and have a great kind of offline conversation. So I truly appreciate you being here today. So let's dive right in. Where I want to start is the Salesforce hack. So let's kind of talk, recent things. That one really bubbled up pretty quick, and it got pretty intense pretty quick. So for those that maybe were head down in their work, can you kind of give us a quick overview of what that Salesforce situation looked like?
Yeah.
And we'll start there.
Well, the first part is it seemed like the information has come out in drips and drabs. It wasn't like Salesforce stood up and said, hey, everybody, let us fill you in on everything. It was more, a blog post from Google and a few other companies, including my former employer, Cloudflare, talking about the situations that they'd run into.
And how they were affected.
And how they were affected and how they were dealing with it. And it's funny, a lot of this happened a few weeks ago when I was over in Germany. And I had done a LinkedIn post saying I'm going to be over here. And as a result, I ended up, like, usually if some CISOs will reach out and then I'll end up getting coffee or lunch with them and we'll just talk. And so I was sitting down with a CISO from Germany of a very large manufacturing company. And he said, "Oh my God, the Salesforce situation." And I'm like, and sometimes you're on the other side of the planet and people are still dealing with the same issues. And you're like, wow, these technology issues just cascade across everywhere. And it was at the point where we're still trying to figure it all out. But fundamentally, the way I think about it is, number one, we've never really done a good job securing SaaS apps as an industry. We've gotten better at the infrastructure in the cloud and managing the risks there, but we haven't ever really nailed down SaaS app security. But what's happened in the SaaS apps is they went from just old Salesforce, and maybe some of us still think of Salesforce as like what it used to be. It was just like a customer relationship management tool that your sales team would use. But there's been so many layers built on by third-party developers. It's almost like our iPhone. It's got a lot of the software that interacts with Salesforce isn't Salesforce's software, and so we think our supply chain is Salesforce, but it's really Salesforce Plus in that context. And layered on top of that, a lot of the attack groups on the outside have really focused on identity and access management. And it turns out, so it wasn't so much that the Salesforce, and our first reaction is, oh crap, I have a lot of stuff in Salesforce. But it turns out it's not the stuff we have in Salesforce, in terms of the names of our points of contact and customers and things like that. But the customer support issues, a lot of times had things like, for triaging it, they'll, inside the support tickets, it'd be like going into our internal emails and you're finding, oh wait, somebody sent an authentication token because they had to triage. And so the Salesforce compromise turned into a compromise of a lot of other companies because of what was contained in there. And I think people are, honestly, I think that it hasn't been covered in the media to the extent of how bad it really is. And partially I worry that it's because not enough security teams have gone in and really dug in to see the implications for them.
Is this a case where we have a blind spot into the third parties or fourth parties relative to these SaaS apps, and is it just SaaS, or are there other kind of technologies that we should worry about as well? If we put SaaS, we have this category of kind of blind spots. Would SaaS be in there? What else would be in there?
See, it's funny. I go back and forth because I think on the one hand, I think of this as a SaaS app sprawl problem, but on the other hand, it's an authentication problem because it's. When you get into the Salesforce and you get that authentication token or something like that, you're now a third party authenticating it. The attacker is be able to go to their Snowflake and authenticate into it. If we have better session, if we had better control of all the sessions for authentication and we were able to tie sessions consistently to devices, we'd be in a much better place.
Is this a case where, again, back to the ID situation or, a concept, is this we are granting, or those companies are granting too broad of access?
Yes.
So if we maybe applied some zero trust principles to the SaaS companies putting zero trust in there?
Well, I think we need too much of authentication is all right, well, let's have a cookie that lasts for 6 months or 6 years or forever. Instead of okay, this token should last for 24 hours and then the person has to re-authenticate somehow through an authentication system. It's like we just leave these keys lying all over the place. It used to be we talked about secrets in code, and now it's secrets in SaaS. Is basically what's going on here. I feel like the attacks of the last couple of years are showing us the places where we did a bad job on security in the past. Number one is on authentication. With the sprawl of SaaS apps, we've been around long enough to remember the world before cloud. And the world before cloud, we just had one hard perimeter, and it was kind of like once you broke through the VPN, you were in. And, all the internal apps that all the employees used didn't have serious authentication. Unfortunately now, without that hard perimeter, we have to secure every single thing in that zero trust way. But the second thing that we're seeing is really broken right now is the concept of role-based access control. It's getting blown up not just through examples like this, but what's happening in the world of AI, right? As soon as companies are deploying agents inside the company, or even just kind of deploying any AI tool, it's surfacing all this content to employees that we didn't think employees had access to. I've heard real stories of employees going in to the new AI chatbot and saying, when are the layoffs coming? Mm-hmm. And the chatbot has access to that email between the head of HR and the head of finance as they've been strategizing of like, financially, we're going to have to do some cuts. And then all of a sudden, every employee has access to that stuff. Company uses Google Docs. You think, oh, they're obfuscated. We can set all the docs to anybody in the company can have access to them because there was no way to search and find that sensitive docket before. And it was too painful to name every single person who should get the document. And they don't have a share it only with sub-team feature. And so the controls that we put in place were for a different world than we live in today.
So for security leaders today, particularly related to the Salesforce issue, have you seen anything like right now that we should be doing in that realm, not just with Salesforce, but SaaS in general, that we could kind of proactively go out and do to help ourselves, quite honestly?
So I think we've overlooked a lot of the SaaS app security products that are out there. I'm not going to name the names, but there are a few, and they've and a couple of them have been around for a while and are pretty good at Salesforce. One of the things that I've been hearing about since well before this particular Salesforce incident is that a lot of incident response teams are deploying those SaaS app tools for forensics. So I always used to think of the SaaS app tooling as, oh, that's like a posture management tool on a go forward basis. But I think it was like a major incident response from one of the large incident response organizations, maybe the largest, maybe the second largest in the United States. They started using one of those SaaS app tools because of the Scattered Spider and these new attack groups are very focused on the SaaS apps. And you kind of look at your Salesforce or whatever SaaS app and you wonder, how could I figure out if anything bad happened in here in the last 6 months? What kind of logs do we have? Generally speaking, we haven't ingested a ton of SaaS app logs into our security data lakes. And so try talking to those companies, could you use this tool for forensics to look backwards a little bit? That's a trick that I've seen working really well.
And I can tell you that does happen because just personal experience. We deployed a SaaS security tool, and it was eye-opening what you could go back and see. Right? It wasn't just like you said, move forward. It's a where are we at? It's a posture, but it's also how did things how did we get where we're at? Maybe an idea. So okay, so anything besides maybe a SaaS posture?
Yeah, I still think we got to continue doubling down on identity and access management. I feel like I'm a broken record on that topic.
Do you mind if we double click on that a little bit? Can you, main talking points? I understand you're a broken record, but maybe a different set of listeners, right?
Okay, yeah. So I do a lot of projects where I get hired to come in and help us start, because of where I live in Silicon Valley, there are a lot of startups that are blowing up really fast these days. AI first companies or AI companies get a massive amount of funding, and it goes from a group of PhDs to like, you have to wrap a company around them
Right.
overnight. And it's kind of a fun project to do.
That's interesting.
Where, a large VC will say to me, Joe, we need you to build IT and security from scratch. And so we have like 2 of those projects going on right now where like I partner with recruiters because we've got to hire a team at the same time we got to get running. And as you know, like hiring a team takes a while. So we got to get running. Pretty much invariably, the first thing I start with is single sign-on, and I always want to just use hard keys as the second factor. I was able to, when I was the CSO at Cloudflare, we deployed hard key only as the second factor. Going all the way back when I was at Facebook more than a decade ago, we required hard keys for access to our production environment, like 14 years ago. And so I liked hard keys because they number one, you got to physically have the thing. Number two, you have to, the way that authentication works, it's tied to the device. And I really worry about session or cookie theft. And I've been talking about that a lot. And over the last couple of years, we've seen a lot more targeted cookie theft. Some of the browser isolation products help encrypt those cookies to reduce the risk of that. There's some new standards that the Chrome and teams and others have been advocating and pushing out. But you're dependent on all your SaaS apps to actually like set the cookies. Like, I don't know if everybody realizes that, like, if I authenticate through Okta, and go access Salesforce, there's a Salesforce cookie that gets dropped, and that's the one that determines the access to Salesforce.
Right.
And so, like, your IDP doesn't actually ensure that the SaaS app is going to set the right type of cookie. And to me, these SaaS apps will charge you the tax. Oh wait, you want us to integrate with your IDP? That is single sign-on. That requires extra work on our side. So we're going to charge. You need to upgrade to the enterprise version. And as soon as you upgrade to the enterprise version, you assume, okay, I'm now paying you more money as a SaaS app to do better authentication, and you think that they're going to make their cookies better, but they don't.
Actually lets them off the hook a little bit, does it not? Like if it leaves too much gap from what I can see, right?
Yeah.
So rather than if you were directly authenticating with them, now they're on the hook for the authentication and the role and all that good stuff. But now you once remove it to Okta, and then boom, there's that space in the middle. But now I have to pay you more money for that to create more risk. Wait a minute, that doesn't make sense to me.
Right. So there's some new standards that have come out on authentication, like it's called CAPE standards, CAEP. I can't remember how it's spelled, but CAPE. And I've started going, like, the only conference that I've gone to on my own dime just to go sit and listen was this conference called Identiverse. And it was just like, I've gone now 2 years in a row. Got a sponsor this year. But like the first time I went, because I was just like, I want to really learn more about identity. And we're just not, like, you can't buy your way to good security on identity yet. And that bothers me.
How do you feel about passkeys?
I am frustrated. I'm very frustrated by passkeys. So I've had a 1Password family account. So all my kids are all, from age 5, they had their 1Password account. Like, and I've wanted them to always use it, and my wife and everybody. And what I'm seeing with passkeys is that the user experience is not there yet. Conceptually, I like the idea, but the user experience, because you're hoping that like 10 different like my Chrome browser is trying to suggest passkeys stored with Chrome, and 1Password is trying to suggest passkeys stored with them, and PayPal is trying to suggest a different thing with their passkey implementation. And it's just like, I've got 7 pop-ups coming at me every time I encounter a passkey right now. And so I'm not sure. It's like, I don't know if it's helping or hurting.
Right. Yeah, and if you're going to cause more confusion or more friction, it tends to take away. And I think back to the user experience idea. Totally agree with you there. All right, so let's move on to the next one. By the way, we did deviate a little bit off, but I like the identity. I agree with you on the identity. You're right, and I think you summed it up perfectly, which is we can't buy our way to ID security yet. Well, maybe, okay, I'm going to indulge a little bit more. Are we close? Do we feel like there's some sun on the horizon?
I feel like we're talking about the right problems now.
Okay.
And it's only because the frustrating thing is I think we knew these problems with sessions were too long and that they weren't attached to devices. We knew about that problem years ago, and we started talking about it years ago, but it's really frustrating that we didn't get momentum for change. Now the IDPs are trying to come out with solutions to this. And it's like, look, you're the experts on identity. You had to have understood that this was the vulnerability in all of your products, and yet you didn't do anything about it until our companies are getting blasted by these attacks.
Is that a case of no compelling requirement for change? Like, it seems, ID attacks are where we're at right now, right? And so now the pressure comes.
It's a little bit, I think, an us problem. By us, I mean the security leaders, because I think we had our heads in the sand a little bit, particularly because if you think about the org structures in traditional companies, identity was not controlled in our organization. In 2025, you see a lot more security leaders who own identity.
Agreed.
In 2020, security leaders didn't want to own identity because they didn't want to touch something that was close to uptime issues. Like if you screw up identity, the company can't.
Or that it was just clearly a cluster F, quite honestly.
Yeah.
Because that's typically what I saw was it was a mess.
I believe we have a topic that we'll get there. When we were communicating about over the last few weeks, as we've been talking about what we wanted to talk about, we want to talk about the future of orgs, security orgs.
Yes.
Well, before we get to how security orgs are evolving, something else is evolving, which is the role of the CIO. It's going away. In startups, in small companies, when I go in and I'm helping them, they want to hire one leader, and they want it to be a security leader, and they want to have IT under them. I can think of 10 friends who are at fast-growing companies who have always been security leaders, and they have IT underneath them. IT has been commoditized because of SaaS. So 20 years ago, the CIO was incredibly important executive. In big organizations, they still are, and I think they're holding on. and it's funny because the CISOs are stuck below them in a lot of organizations, and there's this thing. Well, I'm telling you, it's completely flipped, and I think it's really good for security leaders to have IT under that because it teaches you about what matters to the rest of the company, which is going fast.
Right.
I need access to this environment right now. Sure, you can secure it, but I need to get in. And so I'm really curious to see how that evolution is going to continue as these small companies get bigger. Is somebody going to say, wait a minute, all right, you're at 5,000 employees, it's time to hire a CIO, or is that ship sailed?
So I agree. I have several that I would say that I know grew up are security, but own IT as well. I think our recent development as a group into better business leaders has helped that quite a bit. Yep. I agree. I think the SaaS aspect of it has grown a lot of that. And I think you're right too, on the companies that are younger and more aggressive into cloud and SaaS, where you don't have that high need overhead for a CIO. It is, you're plugging into the wall for electricity to some degree, right? How do I secure that socket? That kind of idea. So I'll take a little bit of a contrary view and ask you a question. What about those folks that are naturally going to give us blowback and say, is this just coming from a fact that you're a CISO or you're a former CISO and you just want the CISO role to grow and give you a little bit of sour grapes on that one?
No, I get it. If you're in a hybrid environment or an older environment, or even in a lot of OT contexts, there is the need for a strategic leadership role to make sure that all the technology works together. Companies that have been built in the last 15 years, like I've seen that, the CIO role has really diminished. And in this, I don't know, I don't think I like this term, AI native next set, it's continuing even more. Right. But where I think, why I think the CISO role is growing is completely different. I think the CISO role is growing because the amount of risk that technology is bringing to companies has gone through the roof in the last 5 years. And I think that every CEO wants a right-hand person who can help them manage all of the digital risks. And I see a lot of experienced security leaders uncomfortable jumping into that seat, not just because of the risk, but because of the complexity and the expectation that you'll grow to understand all the aspects of the business and not just think about security.
Okay, I want you to hold that because that's our last question. So, but you great lead in for that one. All right, so let's move into AI noise versus AI in practice. This is one that you brought to me. You said lots of doom and gloom, right? Everybody's worried. Can we see our way clear to embrace AI, practical use cases, move the needle, however, whatever platitude we want to call it, but is there areas that you're seeing, because you see a lot from your consulting practice, that like everyday security leader listening to this and go, I can go implement that, or I can go pursue that in my organization and it have it be meaningful, and I'm not going to get my head chopped off if we struggle, right?
Here's my take from talk. I've talked to a lot of people about it, and I get to wear two different hats. One is, or maybe I get to wear three hats. One is I'm inside companies that are running fast, doing AI things, and I've got to be part of the team thinking about how do we secure that. Two, I get to go out and hang out with a lot of CISOs around the world and hear about how they're thinking about it. And then three, I spend part-time at a VC where they're looking to invest in companies. And I think I've sat in on pitches from literally 100 companies in the last 6 months that are saying we can secure the AI. And I was an advisor to two companies that got acquired this week. In fact, I was an advisor to Lakera and to Pangea, and they just got acquired by Checkpoint and CrowdStrike. And the reason I became an advisor to them was because I wanted to understand the technology, like how they were trying to secure AI. So I've been looking at it from these different angles. I think CISOs don't know what they want to buy yet or what they want to do to secure the AI. I think a year ago, too many CISOs were putting their head in the sand and saying, "Yes, I'm just banning it," or "It's not happening."
Here's the written policy.
Yeah.
I'm out.
That didn't work, and it will never work. We have to. I think that the number one thing CISOs are focused on right now is visibility and promoting transparency. I don't think we should. I was at lunch just before this with a group of CISOs, and I said I don't think. I think we're using the wrong term, shadow AI, because shadow IT was something where people just organically went and did it of their own. With AI, it is top-down pressure.
100%.
It's like the rest of the company is running towards AI, not because of curiosity. It's because the board and the CEO have been reading all these articles saying we're going to get displaced by AI-first companies. And so they're telling every single executive, you need to go innovate around AI. What are we doing on AI? And so that's not shadow. That's intentional top-down business strategy.
That's high noon.
Right? And so we can't, if that's the company's strategy, embrace AI, then the security team's strategy needs to be embrace AI securely, right?
Yep.
And they're not doing that. Partially, it's a question of what kind of security issue is it? So, And when you look at it from the angle of the startups, they're really struggling to figure out what are the words to say that'll get a CISO to want to buy their product. They're like, we're the AI red team tool. We're the AI AppSec tool. We're the AI DLP. We're the AI role-based access control. Mm-hmm. We're the AI, they're like, and then we have different sub teams inside security, and they're like, the CISO's like, which one of my teams should be the AI security team? And do I think of it as an AppSec problem, or do I think of it as a data loss problem? The answer is it's all of those things. Like somebody said at lunch today, AI is just a hyper speed version of a human problem. Like all the problems that humans can cause in our environments, AI can cause just faster. And I thought that was like a really...
That's an epiphany, quite honestly, from my perspective. I hadn't thought about it. I mean, but you're right. Like that person was right. Feel free to call them out if you feel comfortable doing so, because that's a great read-in. Yeah, like everything that you were in, and we all know we don't do human very well anyway.
Right.
So now we're complicated because of speed,
right? Exactly.
and scalability. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Keep going. Sorry.
So like as CISOs and security leaders, we're like, okay, like how do I solve this problem? And then they kind of look at it like, well, we're not bleeding yet. I don't see any evidence of hemorrhaging. So it's kind of like what happened with SaaS. Like, with AWS S3 bucket problems, like we saw the gory
yes, we did.
brutality happening across the profession, and we're like, all right, we need some products that work here. We need to have a cloud security team that focuses on this. And so we actually created a new team in a lot of companies, right? The team that was focused on cloud infrastructure. We didn't do that for SaaS. And then like I think teams are struggling with like, do I do that for AI?
Should we?
I think I'm a big believer in general of having one neck to choke as a concept. And I mean it in the best way, meaning like as a leader, if there's a problem area, I want someone thinking about it holistically. And I do think that AI, because it impacts everything, it is an AppSec problem. It is a DLP problem. It is an identity and access management / role-based access control problem. When we deploy agents, they have the same access as an employee, but the employee just didn't have it didn't work 24 hours a day,
right.
and wasn't constantly able to like process what's happening in every corner of the company. And so our strategy needs to take in all the different aspects. And so that means that every team inside our organization. So I think the CISO has to decide, is it me personally that is going to make sure that we have a holistic AI defense strategy across all my teams? Or do I want to deputize someone and tell them that they need to work with all the teams? I think that the one place where we're seeing companies create dedicated AI security teams are the companies where AI is being ingested into the product. Mm-hmm. So like companies that build software that have AI,
right.
Are viewing it as like our traditional AppSec team doesn't have the depth in AI that we need to bring it into our product.
Or that'd be more like not a traditional, but like a product security team. But now with the AI, now we have another security team that's the AI security for the product, versus AI security for the enterprise.
Right.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, like that's a special unicorn, though. Quite honestly, unicorn of unicorns.
I think it's. I think at the end of the day, when you look at those people, they're AppSec people. And just like the nature of the AI, it's really important to have people who understand how technology works. I had a really interesting conversation with someone recently. Last week, I had a chance to do a talk to CEOs of companies. So one of the things I try and do is get away from talking to security people about security and talk to CEOs about security, because I think it's really important for all of us that we be talking to CEOs and getting CEOs to co-own the problem with us. And so I was talking to this group. I gave a talk to a group of CEOs, And it was like the flip. I was talking to them about innovation, and I was asking, like, how do you create a culture of innovation outside of your product team? And we were talking afterwards, like at lunch, about which people inside their companies were adopting AI really fast, and which people are really effective with AI. And I had been hearing forever this, like, oh, you know who's going to embrace AI? The kids, the people right out of school. And I think there's some truth to that. But I heard two fundamentally different things last week. One was, what I heard was, the more developed you are in your career, the better you are able to get good results from AI. Mm-hmm. Think about it like this. If you understand the nuances of a problem, you will write a better prompt. Like, at the end of the day, most of our interaction with AI is these prompts.
Yep.
I actually listened to a podcast on how to be excellent at prompt engineering while I was flying to Texas here. And it's because, like, how you put words together in that prompt fundamentally change what output you get. And think of all the terminology you and I know, and the problems we've dealt with, and the angles. Like, if I bring up a topic in cybersecurity, you have 10 different experiences from the past in that topic that would shape how you would ask a question.
Yes.
And someone who's brand new is going to ask how do I secure Salesforce? As opposed to, like, how do I deal with the issue of token theft in the context of a Salesforce that has a plugin from a third-party developer? Like, you get two fundamentally different answers out of the AI.
Absolutely.
And so more experienced people have a really big future in AI, because we need experienced people around the AI.
So that, I think we just touched on the edge of it, but I think we want to now go into it because it's the perfect time for it. Security teams, how they're organized, and AI. Mm-hmm. Is it time to, because part of what you said in there was, I hear all these silos, right? We have our ID, we have our SOC, we have our, GRC, we have our, AppSec.
Yep.
Is it time to take a look at how we put together our security teams in the age of AI, or within the face of AI even? Yeah,
I believe the answer to that is yes, for two fundamentally different reasons. One is, I think that the challenges of securing AI are going to require certain skills. And two, the impact of AI on the work that is done on our security team is going to be significant. And so I think we should take both of those as separate topics. Let's take the impact of AI on security work. I believe is going to be significant. Mm-hmm. In 5 years, a lot of the toil that our teams do is going to go away. AI is really good at what we're bad at.
Yes.
Going through a haystack to find a needle. AI is great at.
It is.
Humans, terrible.
Looking at multiple different data points and correlating them in some way, or pulling things together in a way that a normal human, maybe you couldn't. Same idea, right?
GRC tooling is going to get 1,000,000 times better because of AI. SOC automation is actually going to mean something.
What are you saying about SOAR? I kid. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not setting you up.
And so AI is going to replace when I think about the hardest part of my job when I was the CSO at different companies, the hardest part of my job was getting my team to do the toil part. They all wanted to do the cool stuff.
Of course.
They didn't want to do all right, we got to trawl through, we got to go through the 400
tasks.
We have a list of 400 vulns we need to go through and evaluate high, medium, or low. And you're just like, that's what we're going to do for the next 4 hours, people. A lot of that stuff is going to go away. And so what does that mean for your team? It means that you need to hire people with different skill sets. I told someone this story. A long time ago when I was at PayPal, one of the teams I was responsible for was we would get these inbound data requests from law enforcement, and they used to come in on fax. law enforcement was, I'm talking
Yeah, I know.
2008, not that far long ago. Like we had email then, they could have used email, but they loved their fax machines. So I had to have an employee on my team who would take all the faxes, bring them to the copier and scan them in. And the volume of data requests from law enforcement across the planet was significant enough that it was a full-time employee job. Because it was a cool place to work, PayPal, 2006, 7, 8, like we would get these amazing resumes because it was people who were just like, I will do anything at PayPal.
Yeah.
And my team would be like, look at her, look at him. They're great. Let's hire them. You know how long they want to do that job?
About -5 minutes.
Right. So I started interviewing. I was like, I need to interview the candidates because you're hiring the wrong people. I need someone who is okay with copying all day long for the next 5 years. And I remember the woman we hired, when I interviewed her, I'm like, you're going to go like this all day long. How are you going to feel about that? And she said, I find the zen in copying. And I was like, oh my God.
That is amazing.
And she did. She's probably still there doing it. But we have a number of people on our security teams, a large number of people on our security teams who find the zen in the toil.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like there's a repetitive task. They do it. They're comfortable with it. They're not ambitious. We've liked having those people on our teams because we knew that toil wasn't going away. What are we going to do with those people as the AI starts to work?
Now, this is office space for me, right?
Yeah.
The stapler, right? So what happens when we take their stapler, right, and move them down to the basement? There could be trouble, right? Hopefully the place doesn't burn down. Don't get me wrong. But to me, that's kind of that same idea. Like how, and maybe you were next getting into this, but how do we, because we've all heard we have to hire people with different sets of skills. We haven't done a good job of that to date.
Right.
So how do we do it now? Or is the pressure going to be so great that we will be compelled to do it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think you and I talking about this right now, for a practitioner who's listening to us, what I want them to take away is, if I have a rec, Joe leaves tomorrow, Joe's been doing that job for the last 5 years, and now Joe's manager comes and says, here's a job description to hire another Joe. I think as the leader, you need to say, is it the right thing to hire another Joe right now? Or how much is that job going to change in the next 3 years? Do we want someone there who's finding the zen in the toil? Or do we want someone there who's going to try and break out of the toil using AI?
Right. And thereby automation or, yeah.
And so that's, I think, the first thing that's going to change is that, like, the tooling is going to force us to change.
So is that a case where, as a security leader, I'm going in and saying, now I'm going to start screening people based upon their, not necessarily their existing skill set of AI, but maybe their outlook on how they would utilize AI to solve a problem? Mm-hmm. You think that's the direction right now, since we don't have a fully baked kind of pathway?
Right. Yeah, I want to look for people who are AI curious. And we're making up lots of funny terminology here today, but like
that one scares me a little bit, Joe. I'm just saying.
No, but you know what I mean? Like, curiosity is always a good thing in creative roles. Curiosity is not necessarily the best thing in repetitive task roles.
Correct.
But bringing in people who are not afraid that the AI is going to take their job away, but believe that AI is going to make them like for me, like I choose to be an optimist about AI and think, I can't wait for AI to do my dishes and laundry. But
ironing.
Yeah. Well, nobody's doing my ironing right now. So I gave up on ironing and I just sprinkle water on my clothes.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. But like, we want to make sure that we're bringing in people, and maybe we say to that manager, no, your job is this process world. You're not getting a head count. You can have one more AI tool instead, and I'm going to take that head count and I'm going to use it over here on AppSec.
Well, and I can say I've used that approach in my day work, right? Where we're a lean team. And anytime that we have an issue that we look to solve, we always look to solve it through either automation, now AI. Something has to, how can I make my people more efficient? Or if we have to go tackle this thing, how can I make sure that I'm taking the work out of it, the toil out of it? I like that term, and I'm going to continue to use it, so I'll give you credit everywhere I can. But the toil is the key. Anywhere where you're burning human time, I think we just have to be very aggressive in how we look at it and say, I want to eliminate it as much as that as possible. If anything, your thoughts on this? Humans should become kind of just a QA for most things.
Yeah. It's funny you say that, because I started thinking about when I first got into tech, we had a QA team.
Yeah.
We don't have QA teams anymore.
No, we don't.
We went from launching code once a month that was reviewed by a QA to launching code once a week to launching code once a day to now like real time, like every engineer is launching code and there's these wheels around it. It does feel like there's like going to be a lot more QA, and it might be like a QA that's while the product is live.
Right.
It's not pre-launch QA.
No. That's not what I was saying. Ultimately, we're just going to check a bunch of work, right? We're just make sure parameters are in line. The output looks good. Just when you want human in the loop, it's just us checking to make sure that it's a sanity check, quite honestly, something like that. Right. Interesting. You look like you had something else. Go ahead. Yeah.
So I was saying, I think that there's two things that are going to impact the org. One being, the AI tooling that's coming for security. But the other thing is that those risks. And I fundamentally believe that we're going to be doubling down on AppSec engineering hiring. At the VC, we've had this thesis for the last few months. And so we've been spending a bunch of time looking at all the startups that are claiming to be like AI AppSec or AppSec for AI. And we haven't found one that's really like, there's no such thing as a replacement for an AppSec engineer right now.
Yep.
I hate to say it. Like there are lots of good AppSec tools out there, and there are lots of good startups that are helping AppSec get more efficient and prioritize risks better. But I'll tell you, like I'm embedded inside one public company. If we could find 5 AppSec engineers who could meet our hiring bar, we would hire them today, maybe 10.
Wow.
And at the startups that I'm working with, the hardest spot to fill is AppSec.
Is that because, now I see AppSec, app generally, but AppSec specifically as a combination of art and science. And I think that becomes in and of itself part of the issue, because there's that art aspect is not easily, you just can't go through a course, right? It's practice. It's finding the way. It's finding your je ne sais quoi when it comes to that thing.
Yeah, I think you're helping me clarify what I wanted to say, which is when I say AppSec, I don't mean everybody who puts on their resume that they're an AppSec engineer.
Yeah, no.
The vast
true practitioners.
I'm talking about people who maybe used to be a developer or could be a developer. Those, like, that's the standard. You've got to be that comfortable around code.
Right.
In this world of AI, because the AI, the software engineers are being replaced by AI tooling, but that means the volume of bad code coming in our direction isn't going down, it's going up. And so more companies are doing their own development work and not just prototyping things that they built, with a vibe coding tool. They're pushing it to production. Right. And we need AppSec engineers who can actually speak the language of developer to help them do it right. And so most of the people who work in security aren't qualified to be an AppSec engineer.
Totally agree with that.
And maybe they don't want to be, but like I think that if somebody said what's the place in security that is going to be least negatively impacted, I would say it's going to be AppSec. I think that I would love that AI would write perfect code, but I think we're a long ways away from that.
Unfortunately, LLMs are trained on basically all the code, and all the code is bad, is not usually well written, right?
Yeah, and there are these two words that keep coming up that I now remember all the time: probabilistic versus deterministic.
Yes.
And LLMs are probabilistic, which means that they're going to get it right 90-something% of the time.
Get it right, probably.
Right. Exactly.
We're just making it
that's the word.
approachable, right?
Right. And so there are lots of contexts in which we're okay with the answer being right most of the time. There are a lot of places we're not okay with that.
Right.
If you're doing surgery on me, I'm not okay with a 98%.
Well, first, if I'm doing surgery on you, we got a bigger problem. But anyway, let me ask you a question, and I'm going to go off script here for a second, because this kind of started back in the spring, and I kind of keeps getting reinforced, particularly with the MIT study that just came out about the whole 95% are failing, et cetera. But one of the things buried in there was that small language models are actually going to be a great next step for us generally, not just cyber, but in technology, because deterministic, much more cost savings on energy, lower impact, et cetera, maybe network them together for a specific, your thoughts, your exposure, what do you have on that?
Yeah, I think that the other podcast I listened to this week was the CEO of DeepMind, which is the Google AI building team. And he was talking about that he said that they pair their probabilistic models with deterministic software to reduce the problem. But he said it's really hard to do those two things together. And I'm hoping that's where the innovation is going to be, is that we're going to get back. As security practitioners, I think we like deterministic much more than probabilistic. And so like anytime probabilistic code is being deployed, it's going to be problematic.
Not just the probabilistic. I mean, think about, we're going to do a detection, and it's probabilistic.
Right. Like 2% of the time, it might decide.
Maybe not. Maybe that's not a big deal. Yeah. But that's when,
YOLO.
YOLO. I haven't heard that in a long time. That's awesome. Okay. Did we wrap that up? I want to make sure, because I moved ahead of you, and I apologize. That's horrible interviewing.
I think this is good. We need our security leaders to be thinking about their organization evolving to meet these new challenges.
If I were a security leader out there, or a security practitioner, and you're telling me that AppSec is the direction, besides the coding aspect, what would be some practical things you're like, here's where you need to focus your time, effort, and attention?
Yeah, it's, at the end of the day, a lot of the people who go into AppSec are breakers, right? They're good at finding problems in code, but what we need to build is teams of AppSec people who are builders, rather that have that builder mentality. Because I think a lot of the AI products are not customized to our environments very well. And so even when we start talking about the enterprise AI deployments, there's a lot of customization going on. And so that's why I see our AppSec engineers coming over and being consultants on the enterprise side, because our other security teams aren't going to have that technical depth to talk about, to understand, okay, if you set up an MCP server like this, what are the implications? Sure, I need the identity team to come in, but they have to kind of explain, okay, in the context of MCP, this is what's actually going on behind the scenes. So think about how you apply your identity principles to that. It's going to be that. And so that's a different kind of AppSec than all right, I'm just going to pound on this code until I find a problem.
Right. Yeah, so almost like AppSec architects.
Yes. Yeah.
That's where my brain goes with that.
Yeah. And it's funny because in the term architect is used very commonly in some industries and areas. I'll tell you, in Silicon Valley, there are no security architects. Or if there are,
because everybody wants to be a security engineer. Let's be very clear.
Right. Yeah, but hierarchically, when I think of an architect, I think of them as above a security engineer.
I do too.
Right?
Yes.
But we just don't use that terminology in Silicon Valley, like of architect. Like, to me, I don't know why, just because of where I grew up in tech, architect implies someone in an ivory tower a little bit too much.
Yeah, because you're just kind of laying out things versus actually going and doing the work, right? I mean, conceptually, that's not to say anybody's doing that today if they're an architect.
Right, I just pissed off
me too.
everyone with that title.
Hey, okay, but, come on, bring it. What do you got? And then you can come on the show and explain how it's not true.
I have lots of friends who are architects, I promise. No, you know what I'm saying. Like,
I do.
Architects, like the best architects are the ones who get hands-on. The best architects are the ones, I think, who have that code level competence too.
Agree. Totally agree on that. All right, let's shift gears a little bit. Upcoming Nashville keynote, you're going to talk about resilience. Now, we talked a little bit about this on the way in, where building resilience into your organization, particularly at the executive level and not just in the security team, but then you talked about this in the context of Jaguar and what's going on in the UK because you were just over there.
Yeah.
So launch it. What do you got? What are your observations on this?
Yeah, so I put together a keynote that I'm excited to give Tuesday at the ISSA conference in Nashville. By the way, if there's a security conference in Nashville, I'm obliged in my contract with my wife to accept it.
Well, I just had a thing of, if your tour is going to Nashville, guess what? I'm coming to Nashville with you. So there you go.
Because my wife and I went to Nashville for a conference a while ago, and we just had so much fun.
Oh,
she's like, I will be leaving Dallas tomorrow after work and going straight to Nashville, and my wife will be flying from California so we can get a weekend in Nashville. Awesome. So it's a new keynote that I've been working on because I feel like this topic is not paid attention to enough in cybersecurity, which is preparing for crisis. And the talk is going to go through preparing for crisis at 3 levels. 1, you as an individual, like, are you ready for crisis? 2, is your security team ready for crisis? And 3, is your company ready for crisis?
And I'll real quick on that, on the personal side, immediately when you said that, I've heard Tim Brown speak on this. And if you haven't, go find it. I'm going to tell everybody right now, go find it. I'm sure you would echo this. Like, he gives you very sound advice on kind of what he thought beforehand, what he thought afterward, and then, what does that mean? So go ahead. Sorry. Listen to Tim on that.
Yeah, I've had the good fortune to share a stage with Tim several times to talk about this stuff. And by the way, hopefully good news will be coming out on his case soon.
Amen.
Knock on wood.
Knock on wood.
So why do I think resilience is against crisis is important? Because I believe at the end of the day, security leaders are judged much more on how their organization and they did in crisis than they are on the prevention work. Like, we all, sooner or later, we are going through security crisis. Like, the reality is none of us are given enough resources to do perfect security.
Of course.
And so we don't do perfect security. We do the best we can security. And the best we can varies by industry and resources and the team we're given and the tools we're given, the money we're given, the culture we inherit, all of those things that are out of our control. And so we need to, as professionals, we need to recognize that part of our job is running into burning buildings. That's what we do. When a fire person goes running into a burning building, they're not freaking out. It's their job. They're prepared. They have the right equipment on their body. They have the right equipment in the truck. There's another team back at the firehouse getting ready just in case there's a different fire. There's a third team at the firehouse that's asleep just in case there's a fire in the middle of the night. They are structured to deal with crisis. And they've learned through drills and reality. A lot of us, though, we don't get the reality until we get the reality. And so we have to really focus on drill and learning the lessons from people like Tim and me who've gone through crisis and then like can say with hindsight what we wish we should have done. And so it was really interesting being over in the UK last week. And I was sitting down with a bunch of CISOs and we were talking, and they use a terminology that I don't think we use enough. They called it, they all said our number one priority is organizational resilience. And think about it. Until 5 years ago, what was like when we modeled out the worst case scenarios, it generally speaking was the data leaves the building, right?
Yeah.
That's no longer what's the reality of our job. It's fundamentally changed in the last 5 years. The Colonial Pipeline led to people lining up to get gas and not being able to get it. Jaguar Land Rover compromise that happened over a month ago, Jaguar is not up and running. Do you know what that means? I have not seen enough coverage of this, but if you own a Jaguar and it breaks down, you can't bring it in for service because the diagnostic tooling won't work. That's how bad the cyber attacks impact has been on Jaguar. I searched on Perplexity this morning, like, what is the implication of that for repairs of Jaguars? And they said, well, in the UK alone, there are over 1 million Jaguars that cannot be repaired right now.
And didn't you say in our offline conversation, and probably doesn't expect it until November?
End of November is the latest update they've said is we'll be coming back online late November. So this Jaguar one is like hitting everybody in the face really hard over there because it's a company that's based there. But they also just watched Marks and Spencer, which is one of the biggest commerce organizations, have to shut down their entire e-commerce online platform for a couple of months. So when we sit down with our other executives to talk about cybersecurity risk, we have to think about organizational resilience much more. One of the CISOs that I was hanging out with over in Germany, he asked me if I would do a session, not with a security team, with he works at a manufacturing company, and they have lots of plants across Europe, and he said, I want to get the leaders of all of our plants on a call with you to talk about organizational resilience, because I feel like I'm herding cats with all these operational people, and we need to get on the same page so that a Jaguar situation doesn't happen to us. So it's not about something that's happening inside the security team. It's something that's happening with the other executives. And this is a great opportunity for security leaders to step up because the risk has just gone through the roof. It's not like the theoretical AI risk that a lot of people are talking about. This is ransomware is kicking our butt still. And it's not going away because they're getting paid and the hackers are just totally comfortable destroying companies right now. And it's and so there are lots of tactical things that we as security leaders can do to get our organization more operationally resilient.
When we're talking, I mean, I hear about it from a technical perspective. I hear about it from a security team perspective. I even hear about it, working with the AI, with the IT teams on this. When we talk about the need to have that conversation with our peers or with our executive leaders, ELT, whatever you want to call it, do you have a thought process? How do we broach that? How do we not become the boy that cried wolf relative to that conversation? And we don't want to take the FUD out of it, right? But ultimately, that's what it is. So how do we balance that and then communicate it correctly?
Well, I think that there's a lot we can do. I listened a while ago to Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, talking about, I like to study people who got to a very high level and then just got humbled. And I didn't know this until I listened to him talk. He was the COO of Citi, and he thought he was going to be the CEO of Citi, and he was like, high up and high on his horse, and then he got fired. Surprise, out of the blue, shocked him. And then he, had to be resilient and bounce back. And he took the CEO role of a small bank in Chicago and then merged with JP Morgan Chase. And he became, it was a merger of back when JP Morgan Chase was not what we think of it now. And then he built it up, with not by himself, but with a lot of people. But the point was, he's made Chase into the gold standard in terms of it's also the biggest bank around. And he uses this terminology, fortress balance sheet. And I think every CISO should go to their CFO and say, I've been thinking about fortress balance sheet for our company. A fortress balance sheet is a balance sheet that's designed to manage risk. And have a real conversation about what is the risk that can come from cyber? It's Jaguar Land Rover. It's debilitating business attacks. These major attacks, we used to say, worst thing that'll happen is brand trust will erode. This is more quantifiable. If we have a major cyber incident, our revenue lines are going to be offline for potentially 3 months. Our people will not have access to their computers for potentially weeks. We will need to hire outside crisis law firms and crisis PR firms. We will need to have an outside forensic firm come in. We will have to engage law enforcement, and then then we're gonna have to hire more lawyers. The actual cost of a real cyber crisis, IBM in their most recent study said that the cost is at least $4.5 million. Yep. Well, if you look at these examples that I'm giving, it's not 4 million, it's 4 billion. Yeah. And so the company should be thinking very differently about investing in cybersecurity.
Does that mean going down line by line the balance sheet and looking, because I'm looking through the CISO lens and just very personally, are we going down the balance sheet looking at line by line and going, okay, where does cyber plug into this? Where does technology plug into this? What does that risk look like? What's the likelihood, et cetera, et cetera? We start doing that risk analysis line by line.
What I would like is and what I think we're seeing some really positive signs and trends on is I would like the business owners to take more responsibility. I'm sure you saw the news of what the board did at Qantas.
Yes.
That was amazing. From where I sit, I'm sure that the exec team didn't think it was amazing, but
what I didn't see in there was what the CISO did or did not get for their bonus. It was everybody. It was 15%, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, they all lost 15%
of their bonus.
Yeah,
which was the tune of $250,000, I think, for the CEO or something like that.
Yeah, it was not insignificant, but more important than the dollars to them specifically was the symbolic nature
of the accountability
for the entire exec team.
Right.
And the board was saying, you can't blame the dude in the corner or the woman in the corner. You run this business. Right. This is an obvious bump in the road for the business that you should have been doing a better job. So it's not fair for the CISO to own and be the sacrificial lamb. I'm preaching to the choir when
of course.
with the people who listen to this.
But we do get a little further out than that.
But we need accountability to be at the CEO level. Here in the United States on Sarbanes-Oxley, the CFO has to sign, but who else has to sign?
And be honest, Joe, you are the poster child for that. Just, that's the reason why you have the platform that you do, because if they're between you and Tim, those the two prime examples of just asinine from my perspective, the idea that whether it be criminal or SEC wise, that would come in with Tim 4 layers deep. With your case, my understanding is your chief legal counsel was involved as well as your CEO. Zero accountability there, zero accountability on the side with Tim, but yet you guys were picked out. I mean, it's the whole reason I started the show. Like, how do we develop ourselves out of that, right? I think we're getting there. I think we've seen the movement, and obviously you've been a big part of that. Tim's been a big part of that. Both of you've been very vocal, and I appreciate you guys going out and because that's a risk in of itself. Right?
Oh yeah,
you lay your soul bare from time to time. Yeah. Right? All the time, actually, and that's tough. Let's talk about the worst day of your life, Joe. Repeatedly.
I know.
Right?
Yeah. Believe me, the first few times it was really difficult, and like it was literally like shaking.
Absolutely.
And then after a while, I just like, oh, this again. I don't, and like we all want to move on from it, but it's a reality.
Well, I do want to say this. I remember, and I tell people this to this day, our last conversation when you were here, you were real tight for about the first 10 minutes, and I could feel it. And I was just like, how do I make this to where it's not, because I felt like you felt maybe like a regular interview with like a reporter or something, like I was going to try to trap you. I don't know, because we didn't know each other very well. And it was like, no, man, this is learning. And then like, after we got into it, you kind of, but the thing I took from that interview is like, this guy's being asked every day to relive his worst day of his life. How screwed up is that?
Wherever I go, I get introduced as the Uber CSO, and I'm like,
and a felon. Thanks.
I'm like, it's like, here's Joe, the former Uber CISO. I'm like, I did it for 7 years at Facebook before, and 4.5. Like, it was the shortest tenure job I ever had.
And that's what you talked about. The thing I tell people that to this day too.
And I'm like, that's the only one I get remembered for.
Yeah.
But I think about the time I came on, I was struggling with like, what is my role in all this? And I'm much more comfortable now, like because I've talked to so many CISOs who say, please keep doing it. Yes. Please keep talking about it. Please, like I didn't set out to be a voice for CISOs on this topic. It wasn't a job I signed up for, but it was a job that was given to me. Yep. And
we appreciate you for it.
And so I've gotten a lot of appreciation back. And so I'm like, but I also like, the job's not over, because I think that the regulatory temperature has gone down. We haven't seen another case like since Tim in the United States. I do think there's actually decent risk of it happening outside of the United States.
Agreed.
There are a lot more personal accountability laws coming on the books in Europe, and they're more directly personally accountable than anything we've had here. But the thing I want to talk about for a minute is there are a lot of CISOs in the United States still who we've lost track of because there was an incident at their company and the company told them, we're blaming you. We won't do it publicly, but you need to go. So let's work out. But you're not going to say anything bad about us. We're not going to say anything bad about you. Here, we'll give you like 6 months severance if you sign something and we go our separate ways. Like one of the after effects of my situation and me being comfortable talking about it is that every time a CISO is in a crisis, I talk to them. Often in the middle of a crisis. Like last year on Thanksgiving Day, I got a call from a CISO and it was, Joe, I'm being pressured by my general counsel and my CEO to sign a letter to go out to all our large enterprise customers saying we're fully clean and recovered from this ransomware. And I think we're about halfway done and I don't want to sign this. I get calls like, what do I do, Joe? I get calls like that all the time. I talk to I've talked, like if you've heard about it, I've probably talked to the people involved often while it was going down. Because it's like, okay, you know what? You need to get a lawyer. You need independent representation. You need to think about your brand. You need to shut down your social medias. You need to talk to your kids about it. You need to talk to your spouse about it. And your 80-year-old dad who's probably going to go on Twitter and start ranting. Like those are the things that you got to think about, is that like you have a family, you have a community of people, and if you're about to go in crisis, you need them to be
in the bunker with you.
Yeah. And you can't just own it all by yourself. So I I do get to talk to people in those situations. I literally have a text in my inbox that I haven't figured out how to respond to from a CISO that says, how do I protect my assets in a case if because he thinks that people might come after him personally. And like, do I need to set up some special structure for my assets? And I'm like, I'm getting way outside my lane.
That sounds like a legal question to me.
Yeah.
I know a couple good cyber attorneys that kind of practice in that
exactly.
area. So.
So as do I. But
one of the best, by the way, I do want to throw that one in there.
Oh, yeah.
Arvin, amazing. Had him on the show. There's hope for the future, is all I can say. You have that man in your corner.
I wish I'd found him sooner.
Amen.
I found him when I was starting the appeal process, and I knew I needed to move on from my prior attorneys, and I was in a more less under the gun situation, and I was able to look around more. But so there are too many people out there right now who've lost a job, and they're not allowed to talk about it, and they're not captured in any statistic. And I think that's like, CISOs know that, but they're not really talking about it. And so it was interesting. I had a Zoom call a couple of months ago with someone who was in charge of security at a place that had a significant thing that we've all heard of. And they were afraid, so they sent out their resume. After a few months, they started sending out their resume, and they, maybe sent out 100 resumes, and they got nothing back. And immediately their chatter in their head is, oh, it's because of the case. Mm-hmm. It's because everybody knows, I'm a black sheep now. We all know that we all send out 100 resumes and nobody responds back.
Right.
So the people in those positions, they need support from the rest of us, the way I got support. They need to be, when I went through my stuff, Robert Rodriguez, the week I got fired from Uber on a Thursday. The following Monday, he took me out for lunch at the Four Seasons, which I'd never been to before. Awesome. And so he took me to this awesome Four Seasons in Palo Alto for lunch. And he was like, Joe, you cannot hide. And then after I lost the trial, he and his wife had my wife and me come stay with them. And they were like, you cannot hide. You have to get back up. And so I was very fortunate. I had lots of different people like that who were there for me and who pushed me to get back up on my feet and to go back out.
Let me ask you a question then, because that kind of puts a little bit of a, were you necessarily more of a public person prior to your situation? Did you do a lot of conferences? Did you do media? Did you do, or not?
I did. I had testified before Congress twice.
Okay.
I testified, but because of the nature of when you're the CSO of Facebook, it's
you don't have a choice.
Yeah.
That's part of the job.
Yeah. It's like, Joe, they want Mark to come testify. We're sending you.
But there's a lot of CISOs or security leaders generally that believe we're kind of a silent service type, right? That they frown upon some of, a little bit different in your case, but in my journey to do what I'm doing today with this show, I know people look at me and go, who are you? Who are you to do something like this, right? And it kind of goes out of bounds because, again, kind of that black box silent service thing.
Yeah.
Is that, so when you have these folks that are coming now on the other end of that type of thing, is it that kind of, you kind of have to go public, don't you, to go out and shake the hands of the people and be, I always tell students or people that I mentor, it's reputation and participation that really is going to get you your next job. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's not going to be, it's your reputation, whether or not you've had a breach or not. And anybody in the business knows you have one, unless you're brought up on charges of, misconduct or negligence, we all know how it is. So you're not a bad person. You're not a bad leader, right? You just weren't given the tools likely that you needed to do, or whatever that looks like. Or by God, you had threat actors that were amazing at what they did. And no matter anything you would have done, didn't make a difference, right? And, or, that you have to get out and your participation, go out, get involved, go to conferences, speak. You're a smart person. I have a hard time getting some people on this show just because I'm just like, look, I just want to have a conversation. I want you to like put your wisdom out there for the world.
Yep.
And they're just like, oh,
I didn't just start doing it. I got media training. I got, my company said, all of our executives are in spotlights. So we're going to give you media training. We may want to put you in front of a reporter. We may not. Look, every cybersecurity leader should be getting some training in that stuff, because you are a leader of a company or an enterprise, a business.
Right.
And if the company isn't giving it to you, do it on your own. Go do the, go do improv.
Yes.
Or
very important.
The difference, I mentor, one of the jobs I do is mentor CISOs in seat. And I think that we all talk about you have to transition from just living in the technical world to the business world. But I think that fundamentally, the executive role is about communication.
Totally agree.
And so we need to become, if you want to succeed in this role, you've got to become a much better communicator than you needed to be for any role before it. And you have to, and I also believe that being a good public speaker and communicator is not something you're born with. It's like any other skill, it can be developed. I've seen so many executives grow, and the way you grow is by doing.
Look at episode 1. That's all I got to tell the audience. Go back and look at episode 1, and then look at.
You sure you want people to look at it?
Sure. Well, it's with my mentor, so I love giving people, because that tells a great story. But I agree with you 100%. I think we have a road to go there. Go ahead.
Yeah, and so the last point on the communication thing is, I think a lot of CISOs are uncomfortable because they haven't had that conversation with their communications team. Are there boundaries? Whenever I work, I can be very free because I don't work for a company. Right. When I worked for a company, I always had to have this little filter running. I mean, you still have to have a filter.
Well, of course.
But it was a heavy filter.
Right.
And and you don't want to say something that's going to screw up your job. And so as risk professionals, the safest thing to do is say nothing. But we've got to overcome that.
But we also can't turn off the computers.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Same idea,
right.
I think.
So,
okay, in the interest of time, amazing conversation, but I want to wrap up with this. I'm going to ask you this every time you come back. So it's a year later. What's the future of the CISO? Where are we headed? What have we learned in the last year? Has it changed since we last spoke? How should we as security leaders be thinking about the future of our profession?
Yeah, I think we should want to be in the room with the CEO. I think we should want to report to the CEO. I think we should want to be someone who is a co-owner of the business. I fundamentally believe that you cannot do risk well unless you understand all the other disciplines in that leadership room, and you understand why they're doing the things that annoy your team, and why them doing those things is the right thing for the company.
Right.
And so you've got to be in that room. You've got to understand the company strategy. You've got to understand why the CEO is pushing in this thing or that thing. And you have to build personal relationships. Going back to the talk on resilience in crisis, leaders who have emotional connectivity and relationships will come through it much better together than if you get thrown into a room with 5 people that you at most email with once a month.
Because they don't trust you.
Right. There's no trust.
Right.
There's no loyalty. There's no belief that you have a shared vision
right.
for the success of the organization. And so, I think from our standpoint, that's where we need to go. From the CEO's standpoint, they're dying for us to get there now. Most of the projects I'm brought in on now, I'm brought in not by the CISO, I'm brought in by the CEO. And they're like, I need to understand a little bit more what's going on with that security team, and I don't understand the words they use. I hear that from the CEOs all the time. Can you tell me if they're doing a good job? That's what I hear, because I don't understand them, and they don't speak our business language. And so the CEOs, They want a digital risk leader. I don't know if it's the right terminology, but they want one technical person who can help them navigate. You know, and CEOs really think of it like I'm steering a boat here,
right.
And you're like, I've got like different tools around me and all the other people to make the boat go fast or slow, and they're like, I need to know when to tap the brakes in 50 different digital risk contexts. You know, this new AI stuff. What
Right.
should I care about quantum, Joe?
Well, God forbid if we're the ones that aren't leaning in.
Right.
Right? Like we should be the first in line over there trying to understand it so we can advise our CEOs
Exactly.
or if we're not, we don't have that access, at least the next level up. Right.
Yep. Yeah. And so I think that we're being pulled into the exec room, whether we like it or not, because the risks are there. Right. Like we were just talking about, organizational resilience. The CEO is like, I don't want to be Jaguar.
Yeah.
Whose job is it to make us not Jaguar?
Right.
You got to raise your hand.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
And if you're not, you're wrong, I think.
Right.
Any final thoughts before we wrap this up?
I think, final thought, we spend all our time, like we just talked about a lot of doom and gloom, a lot of risk, a lot of bad stuff. But at the same time, there is no better time to be in this profession.
Yeah.
It is dynamic. The opportunities are there for people who are curious, ambitious, willing to grow.
But no single path anymore.
Right.
I think that's the thing that I think people need to understand. I think you would agree with this. So you can tell me different, but like, I think people get confused because they always thought it was kind of this up and then you're the CISO and you're done. But there's so many paths in cybersecurity now, and it's just so far wide ranging that you're never, you know, if you're a CISO, that's the exception to the rule. You know, 10 years from now. Thoughts?
Yeah, I also think that the CISO role is not for everybody. Just
Agreed.
because it was the next step on the ladder, you know, it's okay to say, I don't want to go through the crisis thing.
Right.
You know, I'd rather go over here and do something different. There are plenty of places to go do that. You know, there's a cottage collection. I don't know what the right terminology is, but there are lots of ex-CISOs who are forward deployed salespeople. You know, for
Cottage industry.
Yes. That profession. You know, like helping security product companies better integrate their products into the companies. Like that's actually a very valuable role. You know, but like it's exploded, and there are a bunch of people who were CISOs, and you know, I don't know, I'm not judging their motivations. It might be that they're excited to help these products. They're builders, and they can help CISOs understand the products. But it's nice. We have lots of different paths now.
Right. Well, Joe, truly appreciate your time today. So stoked to have you on again. Of course, the invitation remains open. We don't always have to do it in Dallas. As we know, we're doing the tour. We make it to some place that you're at as well. I'd love to have you drop in, but thank you so much.
Thank you for having me on.
Appreciate your time.
Great to see you.
All right, colleagues and friends, I renew the call. It's time to professionalize the role of CISO. In the meantime, I wish you health, happiness, and success in your journey in becoming this professional CISO. Let's do this.
We're professionalizing the CISO role, so please subscribe to the Professional CISO podcast.